is included but not limited to machine equilibrium, brakes and shifts, normal starts and stops, material lot-to-lot variation. So those are variables that the ISO requirements are stating should be accounted for. So to properly meet those requirements that ISO is requesting, is you need to have clearly documented as a requirement within your validation protocols. And then furthermore, you need to have concrete objective evidence and have it documented during the execution of that protocol. And that's a really key piece that the FDA is hammering on throughout our customer base.
Say the very last thing. So you're going to clear, so variables should be counted for to properly meet those requirements. And then you need to clearly document them as a requirement within your validated protocols. You said one other thing after that I didn't quite catch.
Yep. So clearly document it as a requirement within the protocol, but then provide what we call the objective evidence of it being completed by our operators. So objective evidence goes back to 21 CFR Part 11. So it states that you have to validate it, the reason you have to validate it, but it says you need to provide objective evidence that it was done.
Okay, so you have to validate it and then provide objective evidence that it was done.
Yeah, so for instance, ISO says that, let's just go back to one of those variables. So it says you need to account for brakes and shift changes when you're executing these performance qualifications. So unless you have those brakes and shift changes very clearly documented within your performance qualification, the FDA is going to pinpoint that. So it's having all those nooks and crannies well defined and documented within your protocols and final reports.
All right. So I think we've gotten very technical about, I'm just thinking about the material that we've sourced and gathered here. I think we've gotten very technical about the regulations and ISO, objective evidence. You've given some examples here. One of the things that I think we haven't gotten as technical about is different aspects of package validation itself, or of design and validation. Brittany's given me some of that in a document that's 4 or 6 pages or so that she wrote. Is there anything that you feel like we should air out here in this interview that maybe we haven't yet talked about when it comes to technical aspects of this topic?
So I think so you guys are speaking to James as well, correct?
Yes, on Tuesday next week.
Perfect. So what James offers, especially more so than me, is the steps involved with designing packaging. So that's his background. That's where he learned the validation process.
Okay.
So that's a detail that I can't specifically provide, but I would definitely dive into that, because typically when people talk about new packaging, whatever it may be, they only focus on the validations. But to actually design a new packaging system is incredibly complex. And I think that's something that James can dive in depth with as well.
Okay. Yeah, I do feel like that's a gap that I haven't closed yet. And so if James is going to be the person to close it, that will be helpful, because I want to provide all of this rich context about the why and the landscape, et cetera, and the why, what's at stake, essentially. That's a great frame for getting somebody to really pay attention and dive into it. And then if James can fill in what the absolute details of that package design process would be, and how to highlight that, I think that'll position the universal solution or the pre-validated solution in a really attractive light.
Yeah.
Before, I think we booked an hour. I want to definitely leave a few minutes here at the end for you to talk about what else have I, maybe not yet fully brought up that you would want. What else would you want readers to know about outsourcing and pre-validated packaging and their advantages?
Yeah, absolutely. So from the outsourcing perspective, I think we may have touched a little bit briefly at the beginning, but especially in terms of packaging, outsourcing the packaging portion, it really allows OEMs to focus on what they excel at, and that's creating great products that positively impact patients. But because of that such lengthy, complex product development process, typically that packaging portion is grossly overlooked. So, and more often than not, they realize that too late and if their packaging is not sufficient